Okay, everybody, call the meeting to order. Call the meeting to order. We want to acknowledge that we are meeting on the land of the Tonga people. Okay, can everybody stand so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? All together? Waiting on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we go ahead and get started, I want to have a special thank you to Simi. She's the person who went ahead and brought the food for tonight. And I'm sure that everybody who's tasting the exoticness of the food, that we can just say, Simi, thank you very much. I mean, right, right in Morocco. God bless. Okay. Okay. Also, is a reminder that anybody who is not a member who wants to become a member, this is a prorated time of the year, so we prorate the membership, and after the month of June or July, yes. So just wanted to mention that, so that anybody want to go. Do we have any new guests that have not been here tonight that is not speaking? Yes. What's your, what's your name, sir? Igmar, okay. And Denise, first thing I want to say, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We know that could have been other places. We are a totally inclusive organization. We all spectrums. One of the things that I can go ahead and say that we probably did this year was when we had the come together on our statement between the Palestinian and the Israel conflict. And this club came together from both sides and did a memorandum to go ahead and send to the White House that we wanted to go ahead and have peace. And I think that right there shows a whole lot with the tone of the heart, because you cannot regulate someone's heart. Let's make sure we get it straight. Either they have it or they don't, or they will learn or they won't. So with us having the right attitudes, that's why we all can come together from all different spectrums of the globe and come together as a part, because number one, I think that we all share democracy. Democracy is the number one thing. We don't want to live up under a dictatorship. We come here, we want everyone to prosper. Everyone to prosper. Okay, so with that, I want to go ahead and turn it over to our treasurer. She has a report done. I was going to say, before she does that, pass it out. We have it. Everyone has on the side if anybody wanted to go ahead and do it. I wanted to go ahead and say, as president, we're getting ready to go into elections, and I wanted to say this has been a good year in the senses of the Anaheim Democrats. We went out and promoted ourselves in the Black History Parade. We turned around, we had a fundraiser, we donated money, $800 to two candidates that was running, Tran and Ms. Marquez, going for the Board of Supervisors. I look at, we have done that, and we still maintain our treasury. So with that there, I think that we've accomplished a whole lot this year. And we're going to have the treasurer come on up as she's passing on out. This club is not ran off of a whole lot of money. We don't have some of the major donators to go ahead and keep it up. But you know what? We don't need a lot, but we still can. We get by and we get it done. Also, shirts, sweatshirts. I was talking to Dr. Pat, who's coming in here. Uh, yeah, we have those still available, and they go into the treasury too. So, yeah. Well, right. And t-shirts, I was telling Dr. Pat, t-shirts are $15. I believe the polos are oh polos are $25 and wait a minute. And the sweatshirts are $35. Okay. All right, here's the treasurer for the report. Roxanne.
Yay. Okay, thank you. How's everybody today? If you have the treasurer's monthly report, you can see that we are paid up on our rent until the end of the year. And then our cash balance now is $503.27. I have a donation that someone kindly made to us. I'm gonna give a receipt out later in the meeting. And we have no other things. I could go ahead and second the report and get on with the
I
meeting.
move that we accept the report.
Second.
Okay.
No. Okay, thank you, Roxanne. I don't know if everybody know, a couple months ago, Roxanne had 2 seizures and she was in the hospital for 76 hours in emergency and intensive care. And 3 days later, 76 hours, she was out. Okay, and I'm talking about MRI, CAT scan, EGG, EKG, spinal taps, the whole thing. Right. So they gave her a clean bill of health. And thank the Lord that, you know, that it was so deep to the point where you let the Lord do the work, right? And when you have seizures, they're supposed to suspend your license. They didn't suspend her license. Okay? They did not suspend her because the doctor and I got into an argument about what caused this. And I went ahead and told the doctor, no, I don't have the intense education that you have in medicine. I would never compare yourself like that. I said, but when you work 25 years in juvenile hall, you worked in the medical line, you got the boys' examination coming in, you got the girls' examination, you got x-rays, you got doctor's clinics, you got the whole thing. And guess what? Some of that stuff starts to rub off on you. And being in emergency situations, I'll put it like this, and I'm gonna leave this alone after this. None of us want to find out what code blue is all about. The blue is almost purple. Okay. And that was the color before the Lord used me to save someone's life. So my point of it is that when I go ahead and I talk about life, I talk about all of us. Excuse me. We are not getting any younger. Tomorrow is not promised to us. And they say that one of the mistakes that happens to seniors is they start to neglect their bodies, the quality of life. So my point of it is, and I say this because it's good to see Wes and Becky out here. I want you to know it's good to see y'all again, you know, and because we miss them at the food donation and things of the sort like that. So my point of it is, take care of yourself. all together, because guess what? We can't take care of nobody else if we can't take care of ourselves. Okay, I'm gonna get Vern up here to go ahead and give the Vern minutes. Thank you.
Like Kenneth said, the memberships now are prorated. If you haven't become a member yet, a paid up member, and you don't have the 25, you can join for the rest of the year for 15. But you can pay 25 too if you want. So this is kind of the minutes for the last meeting, which we're supposed to read and approve, but it's also like an intro to the votes we're about to take that are very, very important. Short summary of the August meeting, but we should know that thanks to our tech whiz Daisy Chavez, the club has a YouTube channel, and you can see most of our old meetings there. And the August meeting that I'm describing real quickly, you can see if you Google Anaheim Democrats Club August 2024 meeting, or look for it on the YouTube. Okay, the first half of the meeting was about the possibility of getting rent control in Anaheim, stronger rent control. Sophia Ramirez described some of the abuses she sees regular as a neighborhood activist. And Vern talked about the state's tenant protection law, AB 1482, which is not strong enough to begin with and is also not enforced in Anaheim. Then our special guest from Tenants United Santa Ana spoke for nearly an hour about how they achieved strong and enforced rent control in their town. There are two ways: to either get enough signatures to enact it as an initiative, or to elect a council majority that runs on that issue. Our club seemed to agree that the initiative route is worth looking at when November's election is over. Then we met two of the three council candidates for District 5. Vern spoke about Andrew Sorega, who's having a fundraiser right now at Brewery X, the retired cop who was La Mirada mayor until last May when he suddenly moved to Anaheim to run for council. Carpetbagger. The other two candidates were here. We met them, Kristen Moss and Crystal Ruiz. They spoke and they answered questions. The next part of the minutes, okay, this leads into the votes we have to take in a couple minutes. On two things: our future with the county party or DPOC, and our choice of new officers. September is when this club always chooses new officers, and they get sworn in at the October meeting. Meanwhile, the DPOC has been regularly threatening to take away this club's charter since at least 2018, when some of us opposed their endorsed council candidate, Jordan Brandman. This year, they forced me to resign as vice president because of an article I wrote on my blog, not as a club officer, supporting Derek Tran in the congressional primary over DPOC endorsed Kim Nguyen. More recently, they demanded that your recording secretary, Mike Robbins, resign for handing out flyers that criticized DPOC endorser Evelina Valencia. It's in the DPOC bylaws. Officers of a club can't speak against any DPOC endorsed candidate or publicly support another candidate, or the club will lose its charter. An officer of a charter Democrat club does not have freedom of speech. So it was very selfless for 5 of our members when they volunteered to give up their freedom of speech to be our officers for the coming year. But meanwhile, we tried to look at what we gained from being chartered with the DPOC. Basically, we get to use their Zoom channel, as we are right now, and we get one vote in choosing what candidates in our area to endorse. And we're frequently outvoted by Democrat insiders who don't live here and don't know what's best for Anaheim. So we had a good discussion here last month on whether we should follow the DPOC's rules and keep our charter, or give it up, follow our own consciences, and start a new club, which legally can't have Democrat in the name. Some of our members and guests favored that, which we're calling option 2. But one consequence of that would be that some likely suspects would start a new Anaheim Democrats club, much more corporate and conservative than we are. But it seemed like more people favored keeping our charter and following the bylaws as best as we can, as painful as that is. We're calling that option 1. It'll be awkward to not be able to talk about the candidates we like who are running against DPOC endorsed candidates, the ones we think have better democratic values for Anaheim's people. But the arguments are that we need to keep up this club to show the world what Anaheim Democrats should stand for, and that giving up our charter is probably exactly what the DPOC wants us to do. So we present you members in good standing with 2 options. Option 1, keep our charter with the DPOC and follow their bylaws as best we can manage. Or option 2, give up the charter, do what we want, and restart the club under some other name that doesn't say Democrat. So those were the quasi minutes. Do we have a motion and second to approve them? Second. Okay, any objections? Well, let's vote. Who's with option one is, we'll keep our charter with the DPOC and follow their bylaws as well as we can. Option 2 is no, restart the club under some other name. So who's with option 1 out of the members in, okay, question? Well, we had a big discussion last month, but would you like to weigh in? Here, let me put you on the mic so people can hear you.
You were in the middle of doing the minutes. I think you should take the vote on the minutes and then come back and do the opposite.
Did we pass the minutes? I thought we did. Yes or no on the minutes? Any objections? Okay. Yes, Mr. Joel Block.
So my only point is this, I've been on the losing end of votes at the central committee. And, not happy. I was on the central committee for a while, but you have to keep fighting for a position. And when you leave an organization, then that's what's gonna happen. You don't really want to do that because you're gonna just, it was just suggested there's going to be another club in this area. And you're going to regret, I think, going off on your own. And that's all. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree, Joel. Yes, ma'am.
So up there, you just said that we can't support a candidate other than who they endorse. But as an independent member here, not a board member, I can support whoever I want and I can talk about it. Correct?
Yeah.
We can't talk about it in our meeting, and whoever becomes an officer can't talk about it.
Well, I thought it was just forbidden for him to talk about himself, but we can talk about it. Right?
Inside the meeting?
Yeah.
I understand.
He can't talk, but I can talk about him.
Thanks. Okay, so do we have okay, people that are supposed to vote are paid up MIGs who've been to 2 meetings and have paid their dues. And so out of all of you, who's picking option 1 that we stay with the DPOC and we follow their laws as well as we can under protest? And does anybody want to give up our charter and just go a separate way with some crazy name like Progressives of Anaheim or something? It looks pretty, okay, Greg wants to say something. Greg, speaking of.
Obviously, they're mutually exclusive, that you can't both keep your charter and give up your charter. But we can keep our charter and also create a separate organization to do what we want. And I think probably that's the way to go.
The root of much bandwidth. Okay, that's an option, but we're keeping our charter and as I mentioned, and hopefully we'll stay out of trouble. So okay, we're putting them on notice. All right, now we got some great guests here, so we're trying to move along. You wanna run the officer? More comments? Okay. The distinguished Honorable Denise Barnes.
I'm going to be honestly candid. The 2 people that you had spoken of tonight, yourself and Mike, this isn't your first rodeo. And I think we just need to cool our jets in our comments, our blocks, whatever it takes. All the rest of us are at stake when misbehavior or things that are out of character for us to weigh in or to feel that we're partnering with you in your comments. And I think that's what gets us in trouble. So I really feel we should move on. Let's just watch our P's and Q's and not make this anything other than a very harmonious election so we can get through this. We all have a lot of emotion built into this, but honestly, the rest of us feel calm enough to keep ourselves in check. Thank you.
And yes, unfortunately, I'm not an officer anymore, so I can write what I want in the blog. And I never said I was writing as an officer either. Okay, who wants to run officer elections? Should I do it, Kenneth, or are you gonna do it? So right now, our president is Kenneth, and his term is up. And the only person who has volunteered, well, actually, no, we didn't have a nominee for president last month. And because I wasn't sure if I wasn't sure if Roxanne wanted to stay on as treasurer, which thankfully she has. So Steve White has offered to do that, but are there any other nominations?
I'll nominate Steve White.
Nobody, president going once, going twice. You could be the president of the Anaheim Democrats Club, and you're all giving it up.
I got to speak, remember? Made a
Okay,
deal. I said I would do it so long as I got to make a statement, so let me make a statement. While I'm still a civilian and not an officer, I have the power to, before I give up my rights of free speech as an officer of this organization, I just want to urge everybody, we have 3 candidates here. One of them is Francisco Rosas. Let's see. The other one, Kristen Ruiz, and Ojaala, who are obviously the people's candidates. They're running against Norma, who I can't criticize past tonight. But she's an abysmal council person. She hasn't been elected to anything. And she's a former SOAR director. The other 2 major candidates, Ma and Baelis, are stooges for Disneyland and the bad interest in Anaheim. So we have three good candidates that we need to support. And now that I got that off my chest, I can shut up for a year. Thank you.
thank you, Steve. Did we get a second on Steve's nomination? All right, who is aye for Steve? For president? Any nays?
Okay.
Okay, also, Steve, you're gonna be sworn in next month as president. This is so exciting. We got a great candidate who was nominated last month. It's Linda Lenkering's son, Adrian Stephen. Real smart young man, but he's got a good reason for not being here. You want to tell us, Linda?
So Adrian had to fly out of town and he wrote a little statement. Hi, everyone. I am honored to be nominated as an officer in the position of vice president. I could not be here today as I to respond to Hurricane Francine, where I'll be working as an EMT. It's a private contract with FEMA. The duration of the deployment is currently unknown, but rumored to be short, so hopefully I'll be back home soon. I worked as an EMT for about a year now, and before that, I was a program coordinator at the UU camp, Dependable Pines. I also spent 3 years in different AmeriCorps domestic peace programs, where I served communities by doing disaster relief, environmental stewardship, and creating opportunities for safe and healthy futures. I'm a lifelong Anaheim resident and I've had the relative luxury of housing security while learning about my mom's activist efforts in an environment that feels at times hostile to civic participation. And I will say that he came to the last meeting because he was very interested in rent control for Anaheim and would like to work to have proposals and policies that the Dems put forward on behalf of working folks in Anaheim.
Renominate Adrian Stevens. Do I have a second? All right, who's all for Adrian Stevens being vice president? Anybody against it? Nope. Okay. Well, Adrian, wherever you are, actually, I heard he's on his way back. It was a really short deployment, but he'll be sworn in at the next meeting too. Comes next, recording secretary. That was going to be, we nominated Wesley Jones, but if anybody else wants to do that, make it a race. Okay, then. We already nominated and seconded him, huh? So, who's all for Wesley Jones to be our new recording secretary? Guess it doesn't matter if anybody is against, huh? Because there's no. Then we got Dr. Phoebe Amos wants to be our next roster secretary, filling the elegant shoes of Rebecca Kovac-Stein. And anybody else want to do that? Roster secretary? Get to keep track of all the membership? Okay, well, so who's all for Dr. Phoebe? Excellent. And I think Roxana's been doing such a bang up job as treasurer. I talked her into staying, so we have a little continuity going. So, anybody else want to be treasurer though? Nobody? Okay, who's all for Roxanne? Okay, that wraps things up. We got a new board. You'll all be sworn in next meeting, October 10th. Congratulations. You're gonna love it. And I hand you over to Jody Balma, the political science person from Fullerton.
Yes.
To talk about our initiatives.
What an introduction.
Okay.
I can judge.
Oh, yeah, you can do it, Cory.
So I'm Jody Ballman. I teach political science at Fullerton College for the last 25 years. And at least according to the media in Orange County, me and two white guys at Chapman are the only ones who cover local politics.
That's true.
So if you can find other political science professors to join me in concentrating on local, I would love to not be the only one.
Moody and Stoller.
Moody and Stoller, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you can get the screen because that's what they actually want to see rather than.
You want to see you?
Well, sure. The screen is more important. There's a lot to cover on the ballot. And so I really think it's important to understand that although the media is obsessed with the presidential election, and we are all on attendance until we know the results of that, there's a lot more to the ballot. And it's really important for young people to be engaged and informed as well. So I hope that you will share this information. So obviously we have the electors for the president on the ballot. I'm sorry. We also have the United States Senate race. We have House of Representative races. We have some competitive races in Orange County that could determine the outcome of the House of Representatives. So incredibly important races. Sorry that you're not going to get my slide. Obviously, we'll have almost a page full on the ballot of the retention of judges. Our Superior Court, our appellate judges and our Supreme Court judges all stand for 12-year retention elections. And the last time anybody lost was 1986. So don't spend a whole lot of time because overwhelmingly they will win. California State Senate, Orange County has one race. Josh Newman and Steve Choi, and then the California Assembly. All of those partisan positions were on the ballot in March. The top two advanced to November, so they will be familiar names. What is new and then the Orange County Board of Supervisors, District 1, for to replace Andrew Dow, who should resign. Francis Marquez, obviously, and Janet Nguyen. The nonpartisan races that we're gonna see are the Community College District. We have a North Orange County Community College District, 2 races for Anaheim. Then it's City Council and city officers, depending on which city you have and what municipal offices end up on the ballot, and then school boards. There's also the statewide ballot measures that I'll spend time on. There are 10 of them. So if you have questions, just ask, and then local measures. So just kind of for background, when we say that the United States Senate race is almost certainly going to be won by Adam Schiff, the reason is based on data. It is not based on rigging elections. We're expecting Jesus to come and count the ballots for us, as Trump predicted that he would win if only. It's because the registration is fairly clear that out of 22 million registered voters in the state of California, 10 million are registered Democrat, about 5 million are registered Republican, and then 5 million NPP that kind of lean one way or another. In Orange County, Democrats are in the lead of registration, which to this Central Valley California girl who moved it down here when it was truly behind the orange curtain of republicanism. It is shocking to me still that Democrats lead. However, since January, when I looked at the registration numbers to today, Republicans have had a lot of success in the county of registration. They've added 15,000 registered voters to the rolls, and Democrats have lost 7,000. So this huge surge of voter registration has not hit Orange County in the last month. So something that people should be working on. Still in the lead, you know, we're talking about 1.8 million voters in the county. So these are small numbers, but the trend lines seem to be outliers with what's happening nationally. Perhaps Tuesday night, Taylor Swift's linking of voter registration that ended up with 400,000 people checking their registration and possibly 10 to 15,000 new registrations. They have gamified voter registration. Ask your Gen Z friend or family member what that means, but they have incentivized that voter registration and checking the registration. So hopefully we will see the Democratic clubs really working on registration, because it will make the difference in a lot of these local elections where we've seen local races decided by 15 votes, decided by a tie in Brea School District, where our school board member was decided by the roll of the dice. So that is something to think about as you're knocking on doors and campaigning for candidates, is getting that. So North Orange County Community College, you have 2 competitive races in Anaheim. Ed Lopez, who is the incumbent, has a challenger, Jack Daniel Fennell. He'll appear on the ballot. We haven't seen a lot of action from him. He hasn't run before. I can't seem to find out a lot of information. We'll see if he comes to the candidate forums and more information emerges about him. District 4 in Fullerton is uncontested. Nobody ran against the incumbent. And then District 5 here, Jackie Rodarte, who has served on North Orange County Community College District for a number of terms, has decided not to run again. And so Mark Lopez, who you may know from the Anaheim Elementary School District, is running. He's a former student of mine, so personal bias that he's great. Maybe I should vote for him. And then Steve Slauson was recruited by the GOP to run. He was an incredibly conservative candidate for the Placentia Yorba Linda School District, but not the most conservative in the race. So he didn't win all of the endorsements, but he's running. Please save me. And then District 7 is Yorba Linda with Ryan Bennett. So Anaheim, what we're looking at is you have a lot of competitive races on the ballot. And so you as a Democratic club may have already done the research and met the candidates and actually made your decision, but just make sure that you encourage people to research the ballot, because these local races are often incredibly close. And when all of the media attention is on the national race, it's really hard to get people engaged and interested in these campaigns. So help your candidates out, amplify on social media, share with friends and family the information about the candidates that you support. And so the Anaheim Union High School has 3 seats. I will not comment on Zoom about one of those. The Anaheim City Council has 3 competitive. I heard you were talking about that before, and then the Anaheim Elementary School District. So look into those candidates, make your decisions. There's also school bonds that are on the ballot. We'll talk about Prop 2, that is a statewide school bond, but also there are local, and there are quite a few of them. Anaheim Union High School has one, $496 million that would be the bond amount that the school would receive if it passes with 55% or higher. That's the standard for school bonds to have victory. That is assessed value. So it's not what Zillow says your house is worth, it's what the county treasurer and assessment office says your house is worth. And so the factor that we use is the dollar amount times 100,000. So we're looking at $30 per $100,000 of assessed value as an annual amount. And that's put onto your tax bill that's either in escrow or assessed twice a year. So the other school districts have those. Santa Ana, I just want to draw your attention, if you're talking to people in Santa Ana, these measures have not gotten a lot of media attention. It's, low information elections when we're talking about local measures. They have a number, they have rate stabilization and just cause eviction, which I think the ballot definition does a good job of explaining that. Non-citizen voting, that would allow people who are not citizens to vote only in municipal elections. It does not allow them to vote in other elections. So that will be on the ballot. And then charter reform, that's kind of just a cleanup. This is the one I think should be all over the news and all over people's sites, to know that the Santa Ana City Council is asking for a pay raise, and the ballot language is a little opaque for my taste. They are saying that shall the charter of the city of Santa Ana be amended to index council compensation at a salary of 33% of that of an Orange County Superior Judge. It doesn't say what the current salary is, $1,000 a month plus usually healthcare. It doesn't say that a Superior Court judge's third of a salary is $78,000 a year, which is more than the median salary of Santa Ana. And it doesn't link to a Voice of OC article that I would very much like everyone in Santa Ana to read, where the city council complains that they are being paid less than minimum wage and they work much harder than those people flipping burgers. So share with a friend. So statewide ballot measures. I'm going to go through what it would do if it passes, how much the legislative analyst says it would cost. A lot of this information is from Ballotpedia that does such a good job on the state ballot propositions because it aggregates the information for you. You can go to the sources, you can see eventually the newspaper editorials that are for and against it, and it puts it really together in one place. And then the legislative analyst office. If you want to know what the experts and scholars and researchers at Sacramento are producing as far as background, the legislative analyst office is incredible. And then the League of Women Voters, my other hat is that I work with the League of Women Voters of North Orange County, and I do these presentations all the time. And so we also produce what's called an easy voter guide that summarizes this information. So those 3 sources, if you don't think that I have provided enough information, those are your 3 sources to go to. Ballotpedia, California 2024 ballot propositions, LAO, and the League of Women Voters Easy Voter Guide. So we have 10 propositions. The first 5 are put on there by the legislature. So propositions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are put there by the legislature. And then 32, 34, 35, 36 are put there by signature gathering petitions that place it on the ballot. So proposition 2, what it does, it's a school bond. It's borrowing $10 billion through matching funds that would go to local school districts for to renovate existing public schools and community college facilities and build new buildings when appropriate. And so that $10 billion, the state of 38 million people, doesn't go nearly as far as you would hope that $10 billion goes, but it's a matching fund for local schools that would pass bonds. So because the bond borrows money, we don't know exactly how much the bonds are going to generate an interest over the life, but we estimate, the legislative analyst, let's not pretend I did any math for this, the legislative analyst estimates that that life of the bond will cost $500 million annually for 35 years to repay the bond. What supporters say, yeah.
That's something that by law must include charter schools and exclude charter schools.
We don't know who decides on the matching funds. And so I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question, though. Since many charter schools are using existing public school facilities, I don't know the complication of that. Right? And we're seeing that more and more with our Orange County Board of Education. So I'm not going to read the statements because you can hopefully all read the screen, but supporters support it. And if you can't read the screen, come closer. But the supporters support it partially because, I mean, if I go over here to my unbiased editorial, California should change the way we fund the damn school buildings because we're asking property owners to raise their own taxes. And so there's inequity all over. And just last year we had $99 billion of surplus and we should have taken some out of the pot and paid for schools, but we don't. And nobody will let me be in charge of that. So just in case you're talking to people in Sacramento, we should use surplus to pay for some of this. Because $10 billion wouldn't even really count, you know. Anyway, these are the supporters. So organizations that have endorsed. This can give you a really good idea when you look at the Easy Voter Guide or the Ballotpedia or your sample ballot. Looking at who has supported it can often give you a little mystery, and we'll get to that when there are some strange supporters next to each other that you're not expecting. These are expected supporters of who would want to support a public school bond setup. What the opponents say. So far, nobody has opposed this bond, but I expect, let's take a guess, Orange County Register, Bakersfield, I don't know why they're not on here, but I do not believe that there will be no opposition. There is just no opposition yet. So Proposition 3. Oh, Proposition 3. So remember in 2008 when California voted for Barack Obama for president and against same-sex marriage on the same ballot? That's still on the books. Even though the United States Supreme Court overruled our Proposition 8, it's still in the California Constitution. So this is a cleanup from the California legislature to say, could we remove those words from the California Constitution since we're not using them? So there would be no change in who could marry. This is a cleanup question. The fiscal impact is nothing because there would be no change. The supporters say we should fix the Constitution to reflect what's happening. And obviously, many people would like their state constitution not to be discriminatory. So those are what the supporters say. Lots of people that you would expect to support Proposition 3 are on this list supporting Proposition 3. The opponents say that they're opposed to same-sex marriage, which is not actually what Prop 3 is asking, but that is their answer, that they don't want to remove it. Perhaps they know something we don't about the Supreme Court, because were the Supreme Court to repeal Obergefell, which Clarence Thomas indicated might be one of his planned agenda items, then Prop 8 would be reinstated. So the people who are opposed to it may have a reason to be opposed to it. No surprise to the opponents of Prop 3 who do not want to remove the restriction against same-sex marriage from the California Constitution. Prop 4, another bond. So this bond would borrow $10 billion for climate programs. So the state could borrow $10 billion to fund various activities aimed at conserving natural resources, as well as responding to the causes and effects of climate change. So it would be estimated that it would be 400 million annually over a 4-year period to pay that back. People who are talking about climate change, California now officially has a fire season. We see the ravages on the land and buildings and the expense of fighting those fires, and also just the property damage and tragically loss of life in some of these situations. So that's part of this. The folks who are for it, no surprises. The people who want to strengthen our fight against climate change. Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association got it together to oppose this one and not Prop 2. So they don't want to take out the bond. They are the only stated tax opponent. I have no doubt that other newspaper editorials will come out opposed to it. Proposition 5 is, again, a structural change. So it's an electoral change. It doesn't do anything except change the rules. So Proposition 5 lowers the voter approval needed for bonds. So the same way I said that school property bonds only need 55% and not 66.67%, it used to be that all tax increases for localities needed 2/3, and it was increasingly difficult for schools to ever pass a school bond because of that heightened amount. And so we lowered the school bond to 55%. This would lower other bonds. If you were going to have a bond for affordable housing, if you were going to take out a bond for other development or things your city wanted to invest in, it would move the victory from 66% to 55%. It does not do anything except change the rules. So, and there are restrictions. It has to be for affordable housing, supportive housing, or public infrastructure. So the fiscal impact would be future fiscal impact. Obviously, there is a fiscal impact if it is easier to raise taxes. There is a fiscal impact if cities can then pass more bonds, but the fiscal impact isn't here. The fiscal impact is on those future local measures that then pass bonds. No. Okay. So the supporters say it levels the playing field. It makes it easier to invest in these communities. It makes it easier to have community investment in infrastructure, in affordable housing, in all of those things that they say people are looking for. So that's the reason that you see that. Firefighters are talking about, a partial tax to fund fire and EMS services that failed, but they had 61%. And so they are one of the proponents of this change. We had a number of local bond measures that got so close that 2/3 is really a high standard. And so this would make it easier. These are fairly predictable groups that would support it. The opponents say that change in the rules makes it easier for tax increases. They're opposed to those tax increases. Therefore, they're opposed to this rule change and they want to keep the higher standard. Fairly predictable group of opponents. Proposition 6 is, a question about Prop 5? Where do you want me to go back to? Because I can go back as far as you want.
The idea is that if this passes, and then that means that the taxes will go up.
Okay, so this is changing the rules. So it says if you put a bond in Anaheim to borrow money through tax increase on property to invest in motels turned into affordable housing, or whatever investment you would want to make. If that goes on the ballot, instead of 66% voting yes to pass it, it would only take 55% to pass it. But Prop 5 does not actually pass anything. It just changes the rules for the future. Yes.
When I think about bonds.
Yeah, we're very familiar with bonds.
First thing we think of is business.
Sure.
Oh,
The parking lot? Yeah. Yeah. So it would lower the amount.
Yeah. I mean, easily done the campaign pass. It doesn't look like it's one of the three things: affordable housing, supportive housing.
So that particular parking lot would not qualify under this, but you could see other things qualifying. Proposition 6 would change the rules for prisons. So right now, there is the idea that prisoners work for very low, under minimum wage pay. And particularly, usually what makes the news is our volunteer firefighters, fighting from our prisoners who join the California Conservation League or fight with the wildfires and are paid just ridiculously low amounts. And so this would amend the California Constitution to prohibit involuntary servitude for any reason. The CDCR would not be allowed to discipline people in prison who refuse to work, and they could reduce the prison time for people who voluntarily accept work assignments. So it turns from a stick to a carrot and allows that money. Now, I have tried to research this because I do not know the answer to the question of if you are sentenced and have restitution payments that you have to make to the victim's witness fund or directly to the victims of the crime, whether or not that increased amount that you would be paid of minimum wage would then incentivize the courts to increase the restitution. So if right now you're being sentenced and they say you have to pay back for 30 years, that you have to pay back $10,000 in the restitution fund because you're only making $1.15 or $2 an hour working in the laundry or whatever job you accept. I don't know if giving you minimum wage would then incentivize. And that's not in the law. It doesn't say anything about it, but you could see that those restitution amounts would be raised. So I don't know how to fix that part of it, but that's one of the questions I had when I was researching this. So the fiscal impact kind of depends. We don't know how many people would take the jobs. This is all human behavior. When you change something, you don't necessarily have the statistics and the variables in your equation to plug in to say. So it could be a big change if everyone in prison wanted to work for this now minimum wage. Or if the incentive of time off of your sentence is big enough. We don't know those ideas. We've left them open for some variables there to see how we incentivize. The supporters obviously say that there's no room for slavery and you can't force prisoners to work for no money. We don't exactly do that, but I'm sure it feels like that. And so 94,000 Californians are currently enslaved in state prison. Obviously, there's racial disparities in those sentences and the time that they're serving. So that all goes into why supporters are arguing for this. Some Democrats, the California Labor Federation, ACLU of California, and the Abolish Slavery National Network. The opponents, no one has taken a stance at this point. So we'll see what appears as we go through. I have no doubt that newspaper editorials will take a position against this, and their arguments will be added when they write them. But so far, Ballotpedia reflects nothing. Proposition 32 is to raise the state minimum wage to $18 an hour and tag it to inflation so that it never has to go on the ballot again. So instead of having a minimum wage that takes a decade to catch up, this would be priced at inflation. Some people will not like that because of that factor, and some people will like that because of that factor. It's an important part of this legislation if it passes to understand. So the state minimum wage would be $18 per hour in 2026. After that, it would be adjusted by inflation. State and local government costs could increase to pay minimum wage. And the revenues likely would decrease no more than a few $100 million annually. Then there's the idea that if people are making more, they're paying more in income tax, and they would be paying, buying more things with sales tax. So there's a lot of factors involved with increasing a minimum wage that isn't all penciled out because they're variables we can't anticipate. Especially because the fast food minimum wage is at $20, that's making it more difficult for jobs that pay minimum wage that are less than that. So there are a number of people who are supporting it for a number of different reasons, including a major donor who is funding a lot of the signature gathering and the commercials that have been made. And then Kevin De Leon has taken a position on 3, the same-sex marriage, this and the next one, just as his own campaign. The opponents, we have the National Federation of Independent Business that's talking about the market should decide. And the opponents are the Restaurant Association Issues PAC, the Business PAC, and one that was specifically started for this particular proposition. Yes. Yes, that is covered. Yeah. I don't remember the number. Yeah, but that is covered. And as my father would say, child labor is not covered. You live here and eat here was a constant refrain. Proposition 33, allow local governments to impose rent controls. So again, this is a rule change that does not institute rent control, but allows future ballots to put rent control on their ballot. So because we have a state law that prohibits this from happening, you have to change that law first before you can allow it. So the reduction in local property tax revenues of at least tens of millions of dollars could lead to expansion of rent control in some communities, but this measure does not do that. So there's no fiscal impact from this, but anticipating that it would be easier to institute and pass rent control means that there would be a future fiscal impact. So I kind of like the rent is too damn high. And we're seeing, we had those horrific fires in Santa Barbara, and the firefighters lived so far outside of Santa Barbara that they could not get to their fire station to fight the fire because they were living far away. So there are some issues. This is one of those strange bedfellows. Tony Strickland is supporting it, which puts all of my radar on alert to, I don't usually agree with Tony Strickland. I need to look at this more closely. Is there a loophole I'm not finding? Because Bernie Sanders and Tony Strickland are never on the same side of anything. I'm not saying it's a sign of the apocalypse, but it definitely means that I'm going to research this particular ballot measure a lot deeper, because Tony Strickland is saying out loud there is a loophole that he wants for Huntington Beach. Okay, so lots of people are for this that you expect. The opponents are talking about it would be legal to build new homes, but it would be illegal to make money doing it. Those sorts of arguments that you're going to see opposing rent control. And of course, Costa-Hawkins is the state law that limits rent control. And so that's what we're repealing here. If you want to Google Costa-Hawkins, and the legislative analyst will give you a deep dive on all of that. Yeah.
AB 1482, as we have now, has exceptions on, and Costa-Hawkins would get rid of those exceptions, right? I mean, getting rid of Costa-Hawkins.
Getting rid of Costa-Hawkins would allow rent control measures. I don't know if it triggers a change to the exceptions that were put through. That's a question for the legislative analyst office. The opponents are, we talked about that. So the opponents, we've got Democrats and Republicans. So again, this seems to be more complicated than Prop 3, get rid of same-sex marriage restrictions in the Constitution. So I encourage you to do research on Prop 33, particularly for how it would affect Anaheim. I do not have that level of detail. That is granular, and we might need to talk to lawyers. But again, highlight the fact that Democrats and Republicans are supporting it, and Democrats or Republicans are opposing it. And my editorial on initiatives, when in doubt, leave it blank, because the only way we can change an initiative is with another initiative. And so if something you like the idea of, but you don't like the details of, try again. Because when we pass things like 3 strikes you're out, that seem like good, tough on crime measures, but then we forget to actually require that the 3rd lifetime sentence felony is serious or violent, people are spending the rest of their life in prison for stealing a piece of a pizza, violating their parole. And if you're still tough on crime and say good, we're paying a really lot of money for that. So there are 2 reasons to be careful about that. It took us decades to fix 3 strikes you're out. We tried a number of times. So understand, I do not know enough about the granular detail of this. I encourage you to do research. So, Proposition 34. Remember the dialysis initiatives? And we just kept voting more and more people against it because we were tired of being involved in their marital dispute between labor and companies. This reeks of a dispute I don't want to be involved in. So Proposition 34 says certain healthcare entities would have to follow new rules about how they spend revenue they earn from a federal drug discount program. Breaking those rules would result in penalties such as not being able to operate as a healthcare entity, generally for a 10-year period. On the face of it, okay, that seems logical, except that, so it might cost more money if we enforce the rules. When I actually look at the Legislative Analyst Office, it says only the AIDS Healthcare Foundation would be affected by this. So the people who wrote this and spent a lot of money getting signatures wrote it in a way that this universe of healthcare providers goes down to 1 when you add the conditions of certain healthcare providers. And so if you serve low income and at-risk patients, you get a discount on pharmaceuticals to provide that. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation does that. And then they have also been involved politically, including on that slide for Proposition 33. And so the people who support this and paid the money say the worst abusers of the drug discount program, AIDS Healthcare Foundation, would be forced to get out of politics. But the opponents, and so these people are for it, again, a leading Democrat in the Republican Party. I have some questions, but then when you look at it, the California Apartment Association that was opposed to Proposition 33, that was supported by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Proposition 34 seems to be a war about the people at Proposition 33. And so lots of red signs go off, red alarms go off for me that we, the California voters, are being drugged into a fight between these 2 interest groups in California. So obviously the opponents are the AIDS Healthcare Foundation that does not want to be targeted by this initiative, and housing is a human right. That's one of their allies. So look into Prop 34. Proposition 35 is providing permanent funding for medical healthcare services. This one, everybody's on the same side for really good reasons. And so an existing state tax on health plans that provides funding for certain healthcare programs would become permanent. It would also prevent legislators from using the tax revenue to replace existing Medi-Cal funding. That's often in some of these initiatives as just a guardrail to make sure that if there's a budget cut, that they can't use this new money that we wanted to be used to backfill. And any of you who remember the campaign that the lottery was going to shower our public schools with all of the extra money, and then the legislature said, oh, great, we'll take the lottery money and remove the school funding that we were already going to give. And everybody since then has said, you can't take it away. You can't use this extra money to replace. So common cautionary insertion to make sure that that can't happen. Sometimes that ends up being a little hard because we had budget cuts of existing programs that were really good and we couldn't backfill with the extra tax for mental health programs for children because of this restriction, but it's the cost of initiatives in the state of California. So we sometimes fight the last war with ill-equipped. So the local impact is that there would be short-term costs of $1 billion to $2 billion to increase funding for certain healthcare programs, roughly $2 billion to $5 billion annually, but it would also fund our Medicare. And so it requires the state to spend the money from a tax on healthcare plans on Medicare, which is the public insurance program for low-income Californians and people with disabilities. So right now, more than 10 million Californians are on, roughly a third of the state population use Medi-Cal. The payment to doctors has not increased. And so we have people who have Medi-Cal, who have insurance from the state of California, who can't find a provider because the reimbursement rate is so incredibly low. And the administrative costs to get reimbursed are often more than you're getting paid. And so we have huge numbers of providers who have stopped taking Medi-Cal patients. And that puts an increased burden on the providers who still do. So the supporters say it's absolutely necessary. Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California, the president of the California Medical Association, all say this would improve access to healthcare. Republican Party and Democratic Party are both on the same sides. Every medical provider that you could have, there's more that I just couldn't list. Nobody's opposed to this. I'm not sure anybody will be opposed to it, but I can't predict the future. But there is big buy-in. The reason it has to go on the ballot is because we put Medi-Cal on the ballot before. And so the only way you can change that is to ask the voters again. If this could simply be done by the legislature itself, it would have been done years before. So this is a question that has to be proposed by signature because it's making a change to a previous initiative, and we don't allow the legislature to ask us to change it. We have to do that ourselves. It's one of the complications of initiatives, and why I encourage you as voters to be careful, because once we pass something, only future voters through another initiative can change it. No official opponents. I have no idea what newspapers will do. Proposition 36. There were a lot of competing proposals to change Proposition 47. Most people in the state agree that there should be some changes. Be very careful before you agree with this. Do your research. It might be something you agree with. I don't know, but there are a lot of people who are very worried that this is going to pass and make things worse in new ways. And then people will take a very long time to fix it. So understand that this makes us changes to Proposition 47. That's going to get all of the attention that people are going to say, oh, we're repealing Proposition 47. Not so fast. That's not what we're doing. We're making changes to Prop 47, and we may or may not have unintended consequences that make things worse somewhere else. So it classifies certain drug offenses as treatment mandated felonies. It increases penalties for certain drug crimes by increasing sentence lengths and the level of crime from some of those misdemeanors to felonies. It requires courts to warn individuals convicted of distributing illegal drugs that their potential future crime liability if they distribute death drugs like heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine, and increasing sentences for theft based on the value of property stolen. And so those are gonna become very good fear-based campaign commercials that will probably get overwhelming support for this. Obviously, the several tens of millions of dollars to the low hundreds of millions of dollars, as we would be keeping people in jail longer and felonies rather than misdemeanors. And local criminal justice costs likely in the tens of millions of dollars annually, as there are increased prosecutions in our local county superior courts. London Breed supports this in San Francisco. The California District Attorneys Association, which is the major proponent of this, the DA's association, has lots to say about what they think will be fixed by this. I do not know if that is true. Republican Party, major corporations, and then sheriffs, police chiefs, district attorneys, business, correctional, peace officers association supporting it. The people who are opposed to it are talking about this Proposition 36 would reverse the state's gain in reducing the dangerous, racially unequal, and unconstitutionally crowded prison population with Proposition 47. So understand that there are many complexities with this, because it's not just doing one thing, it's changing a number of things about Proposition 47. People who are against it, a number of Democrats, the California Democratic Party, the ACLU of Northern California, Civil Rights Corp, and Disabilities Rights of California. Those are the propositions. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I do just want to draw your attention to this and why it's so incredibly important to get young people engaged and informed. Engaged and informed. Not just to register to vote, not just asking them to vote. We've been doing that for 50 years. You know, MTV asked us to rock the vote. We were told, P. Diddy wanted us to vote or die. There's lots of social media. I can't go on social media without being asked if I'm registered to vote. Can I blanket tell you I'm always voting? Please stop asking me. Voter turnout is higher among 18-year-olds than 20-year-olds. Voter turnout is higher among 18 than 20-year-olds. We have done an excellent job in the state of California. So this is California. There's my red dot. Where's my red dot? My red dot is not appearing. If you look at the second, so the very top, all the way over to the left, the very top is 10 million registered Democrats and then Republicans and NPP. The second group is who we mail ballots to. That very top line in the dark orange is voters over the age of 65. There's about 5 million. There's about 5 million in the next age group, and about 5 million in the next age group, and about 5 million in the next age group. Because we have done in the state of California with Motor Voter, we are not the state of voter suppression. We are not the state that does not register people to vote. So young people, 18 to 34, are slightly higher in registration than millennials. But look at what happens when, look at the next slide. My red dot will not go up there. Voters 65 and older vote in incredibly high numbers, and 13% voter turnout in March. Why would voter turnout be higher among 18-year-olds than 20-year-olds? They go to vote, they do what we asked. We told them to register to vote, they did. We tell them to vote, they did. And they go into the voting pool and they go, who the hell are all these people? Somebody died for my right to vote. Alice Paul starved herself for women to get the right to vote. Indigenous people still don't have the right to vote. And I am playing eeny, meeny, miny, moe. First name on the ballot in local elections with a randomized alphabet gets 5% more because people don't know how to vote. So 18-year-olds are so ill-equipped, and we have failed them with civic education because we don't tell them what a county supervisor does. We don't tell them what a DA does. We don't tell them that if they care about criminal justice, they should care about their city council because that's who hires their police chief. We don't tell them that if the FBI is coming to town to investigate your elected officials, something has gone terribly wrong. We don't tell them that if they want change, they have to vote from the bottom up. And we don't give them that information, and they don't come back because they feel fraudulent. They feel lied to because we told them to study for who they want to vote for president, and then we threw them a pop quiz with 40 other questions. They're not coming back. We have to change civic engagement. We have to change civic information. We have to engage and inform young people. Well, I would say we got to change civic education in high school because my daughter in 12th grade, which I tried very hard not to micromanage, was told that she could request an absentee ballot from her national textbook. And I said, well, in California, you've been mailed a ballot since 2020. Does your teacher not vote? I don't know the answer to that. But I know a lot of them don't live in the same city. I know a lot of them don't follow municipal elections. I know a lot of them don't know anything about local elections. And I know a lot of political science professors between me, Smoller, and Moody aren't teaching local elections. So we've got to do that. There's some questions in the back I would love to answer.
Add on to tonight, work and talk about now, two words in the option, and we got it, and Marie on there.
Yeah.
And have a list that Magnolia, have signups for registration. So it is happening, just barely.
It's only happening at Anaheim, I gotta tell you. When I ask my students who can name a city council member or a school board member, the only students at Fullerton College who raise their hand are from Anaheim Union. And it's Mary Majewski at Cypress High School. I hope I got that right. I interviewed her once because I tracked down her email to say, I cannot tell you how many students say the only reason they know local elections is because of that. Some civics teachers are doing it, just in college we're not. And Chapman is private. So as far as I can tell, I'm the only one in public. Now, I'm not saying that other professors in other departments aren't teaching local, but we got to do a better job in high schools. Anaheim has done that. Mike Matsuda deserves a lot of credit for his civic education. He sent 250 teachers to civic workshops across departments, not just relying on social studies or civics, but bringing it in. So Anaheim has done a really good job. It hasn't always changed turnout. Here's the one that I want to share with you because you should quote it. In both November of 2022 and March 2024, that low voter turnout among young people means that 72% of all ballots were cast by people 50 and over. And because old people in California are white, 69% of all ballots were cast by white people in a state that is plurality Latino. We have to engage young people. We should engage everybody, but let's start where the biggest need is. So any other questions? I think you had your hand up. Okay, you just wanted me to, that's nice. You're amplifying somebody else. I love that. Yes. Sure, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, a lot of data. I'd also encourage you to look at the Easy Voter Guide for handouts when you're at events. Really simple QR codes that people can take, but actually, spending the money to have those. They're in English, they're in Vietnamese, they're in Chinese, Korean, and English from the League of Women Voters. They do a really excellent job of those translations to make those 10 state ballot-wide initiatives really clear to understand. Any other questions? I know your candidates want the time. You're welcome. You're welcome.
That was great, Professor Bama. Is it Dr. Bama?
No.
Professor Bama.
No.
We really appreciate you coming.
Sure.
And hope to see you again soon. Our next speaker is a candidate for District 1 in Anaheim. That's the far west district. So he's the only Democrat in the race. Is running against Brian Bailey as a Republican. Also, Jose Diaz's handpicked successor, which we don't need any more of that. I suggest. So this is Ojaala Ahmad.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, sisters and brothers. So how y'all doing? Are we good to hear some more, or are you maxed out for tonight? Okay, because I came just to talk to you all I just ran from another meeting, from an orientation for, candidates. So I am so thrilled to meet you all. The fact that you are all here on a Thursday evening and you're still sticking around is very telling about how much you care about our democracy and making Anaheim better. So like Sir Byrne introduced, my name is Ojaala Ahmad. I am the only Democrat candidate for District 1, the most west part of Anaheim. So just a little bit of my background. I'm an OC gal through and through. I was born and raised here. Went to early education in Garden Grove, went to high school at Huntington Beach. Undergrad at Cal State Long Beach, I studied international relations and communication studies. And just most recently during the lockdown, I went back to school to get my master's in journalism from North Nevada University in Reno. And thank God I'm so blessed and so happy to be back in SoCal, in Anaheim, where I call home. So by profession, I work in media relations and communications. I've been a spokesperson to numerous news outlets. I've been your voice in the media talking about civil rights, women's advocacy, homelessness, all of the issues that are a concern to us. I've been a spokesperson in the media trying to get our voice out there. So with God's blessings and with the community support, I've been able to have our message sent out on CNN, MSNBC, NPR, and pretty much all of the news outlets that are, in the mainstream media in the U.S. media landscape. So I wanted to continue my advocacy going from, being a media spokesperson into public service. In 2017, I was appointed as the Housing and Community Development Commissioner at large by Dr. Jose Moreno. No team. This was back in 2017. And one of the reasons that was that really tugged my heart and wanted me to give back to the city more was watching the condition of homelessness in our city. And I was trying to find ways and avenues to give back more and do more. And, I know so many of you from that time and now continue to do so much work on advocacy for the homelessness community and how to find solutions for that demographic and for the rest of the city. And I deeply respect you all for that. And I really look to you for that. I have learned so much from a lot of you. And so I want to take from my experiences from working with the advocates on the ground, the organizations, my work in the commission, working with city staff, and just continue to push those advocacy efforts. Now that I'm running for candidate for this election as city council, I want to bring all of my collective education, my professional experiences to continue to be your voice. And I would be really honored to be your voice in City Hall.
Any questions for Ojaala?
Yeah, do you have the endorsement?
It is a work in progress.
So we're free to endorse it ourselves.
Right? No, because you have the notable DPC.
It's being worked on. Yeah.
So you have an interview with them coming up?
Thanks for the tip. Thank you guys. Fill me in. Yeah.
We can say that we support.
They can only block us if they endorse somebody else. If we left it open, we can endorse.
Well, we're not endorsing Ryan Bailey, but we might, do you support a gate tax like Jose Moreno did, a 2% gate tax on our entertainment giants?
Tell me more about that. Like, so the big corporations, like taxing them?
Disney mainly, and the Angels Honda Center, there's a 2% gate tax on that to help with the things that our city needs.
So to be very candid, will look into specific policies, but generally speaking, I can tell you that I am for the residents and the neighborhoods. So whatever works in their benefit is where I'm gonna lean towards in terms of decision-making and policies. Yes.
So, the only thing we really talk about, are you being supported by Disney?
I am not taking any corporate money. So my campaign has been funded by neighborhoods and residents through and through, and I'm very proud of that. My campaign money is so little right now, it's embarrassing. But I truly believe that organized people is really what can get us to make a difference over organized money. And I feel like you all as Democrats know that in your heart of hearts, you know, like that's who we are as a people. So even though my amount that I've raised is embarrassingly low, I'm very proud of the money of the folks that I've accepted that money from. And I am not taking any corporate money. And yeah, I'm for the residents and for the neighborhoods.
You know, how many volunteers do you have working for you?
Oh, Lord, I really appreciate you asking that question, Vern. I was actually gonna make that my pitch up towards the end, but since you asked that, I'll just say it now. I'm gonna be very candid. I am desperately in need of more volunteers. So whoever can come join me for door knocking, if your children can come and join me for door knocking, I welcome all the help. I am super behind on that. So yes, please, let's get more organized. I welcome all the help. I can use all the help to help us win.
Have you met or heard any of the Native American history or have you met with any of the local Native American that are the only here, which is Gabriel, Cabo, and Anaheim?
So yes. So when I was a student at Cal State Long Beach, we actually have indigenous land like on campus. And being an international relations major, you know, I specifically made an effort to take an elective of American Indian Studies introduction to kind of learn about, you know, what's important for them. How can we, you know, respectfully, with giving them the honor and respect that they deserve, include them in the conversations and all of that. And so even actually you bring up a great point. So part of my introduction, which I guess I should mention is helpful. I was a student senator at Cal State Long Beach. I was elected 2 consecutive terms back to back. And the student campus population is about 30,000 students. And Anaheim District 1 is about 27,000, just to kind of put things in perspective. So I have ran an election before and I have, you know, some experience in terms of kind of, you know, the election process. Even though I'm running for city council first time. But, you know, as an advocate, as a student advocate, I met with the indigenous groups and, you know, heard from them of what they wanted. And the university was actually thinking to make developments on the, you know, their holy grounds where they, you know, celebrate Dia de los Muertos and, you know, offer blessings to their ancestors. So I was actually an advocate making sure that, you know, the university like takes that in consideration and really honors that if they didn't want them to continue with, you know, building construction and things like that, that would be violating their holy space. So yeah, I appreciate that question. And that's something that I would continue doing as a councilwoman, you know, continue to hearing all of our marginalized communities, our, you know, senior citizens, our, you know, teenagers, you know, getting them more civically engaged, and all of that. I will continue to work on that as I make my decisions in council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
What are your top 3 priorities?
My top 3 priorities are going to be continuing to address the homelessness situation. I want to bring more resources and money into the west part of Anaheim. So infrastructure and giving more programs and resources for our libraries, our parks and community programs. And for our senior citizens, if we can continue to bring more resources for them, you know, medical, healthcare, more accessible healthcare, and more resources for healthcare, and resources to, you know, come to and from transportation and whatever else that they need that's going to help enrich their lives. Yes. Absolutely. Denise Barnes, former District 1 councilwoman. Yeah. Yes. I am so grateful. Yes, I am so grateful. She has Honestly, I can't even, I'm just so grateful of how, folks have just kind of come in and like advocated and helped with the campaign, including Miss Denise Barnes, former councilwoman of District 1. So I am just so grateful for the leadership, the mentorship and support. And I really call upon you all, please. I am very short on volunteers. I would really love that whoever has capacity to come join me door knocking will do so. So let's grow the momentum. Let's get the Democrats in this November. And yeah, are there any other questions?
Move that we endorse this candidate for District 1, and that she can use or not use to endorse this as she decides until the PSC makes this decision.
That's it. Who's in favor of the Anaheim Democrats Club endorsing Ojaala Ahmad? And we have a little offering for you.
Oh, Lord, thank you. Wow, thank you. Well, thank you so much, you all. It's truly been an honor. It's just the beginning of the journey. I really hope to be your voice in City Council. I have my flyers.
Okay.
I have some literature that I have. It has my email contact at the bottom. Again, I would absolutely love your help if you're able to commit for door knocking, or if your children can. My contact is here. I'll stick around to answer any further questions or and things like that.
Do we have a?
Okay, I think we have an objection about cash.
No,
No?
don't worry. No, we'll talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? I also have lawn signs, if anyone, would be interested to take one that lives in District 1 that would like to put it for their, lawn. I have lawn signs as well. And I'll stick around for questions and stuff. Thank you all so much again. Thank you.
And don't be a stranger, you should join our club. You know, people that speak Spanish think your name is Ojaala, which means hopefully.
Yeah, I want to be.
So we have one more speaker who came all the way down from Northern California. Bonnie will introduce him.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank our previous speakers, all. It's a good full body membership meeting today. It's great to see everyone. As you all know, many of you know me for the last couple of years. I'm of Sikh background, but obviously Orthodox. The gentleman who's coming to speak, Mr. Pinder, has come all the way from Northern California. He's attending a wedding this weekend, but he's, I would say, the #1 Sikh activist in California. I'll tell you about the history of Sikhs in this country, especially California last century, and some of the recent tragedies that have happened recently. So, Mr. Pinder. I'm also doing a PowerPoint presentation. Good evening, everyone. You guys are warriors. America never works from the top down, it works from the bottom. And today we heard the voices for the indigenous, for Hispanic, for minorities, and I want to applaud this brave lioness with our sister, with her hijab. And this is true American spirit. She wants to serve America, and we should give her the opportunity. My name is Bijan Singh Binder. I'm from Northern California. I'm the founder of the Organization for Minorities of India. We focus on the caste issues in India, discrimination, and also we bring awareness about the plight of the minorities going on in India, Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, women, Dalits, etc. We today know the famous words of Abraham Lincoln, where he said, we hold this truth to be self-evident. And he goes on and say that those of us, we have the right to claim it as though we were blood and flesh of the man who wrote the Declaration. And so they are, and so we are. This is important. Like I said, we are talking about libraries, money, we are talking about schools, we are talking about health, we spoke about homelessness today. And I think it's important that those who really value the flesh and flesh, blood of blood, the spirit of America, those who really value this, people such as Sarah Adams, who served this nation under different administrations. She's a CIA field officer. She speaks about plain loads of money, anywhere for 47 million, 43 million to 87 million, going every week by plane to Afghanistan as part of the foreign policy. That makes it so important for us, those who struggle for money, who struggle for serving our city needs. It's important, like she does, bringing to our attention that there is a big difference in accountability of such money. So information is the key. And those people who value their freedom, who value their future, they really focus on information. And today, disinformation even is more powerful than the nuclear bomb. We have done more damage to the world with disinformation than with information. And thank you. Today, what we have seen, we have heard about rogue nations like Russia, who has really interfered in American affairs forever. Not that we ourselves don't do any damage to ourselves, but foreign nations, they do it for their own purpose. And true warriors like the EU Information Lab, European Union Information Lab, they are a non-profit organization, and their focus is to make sure protect Europe's freedom, Europe's integrity, so no harm come to Europe. So they are volunteers, non-profit people, hardworking people who want to protect freedom in the European Union. They discovered a 15 years operation, just like you might say some of these dictatorships, Russian style, and other countries, they do these rogue operations. They discovered a rogue operations is called the Indian Chronicles, where the Indian state, through its intelligence apparatus, they did a 15-year operation running from 2005, where they set up fake UN Human Rights Council accredited United Nations organization. So a person like me and you go there, and there's an organization to counter human rights against human rights. So they resurrected dead people who were human rights champion. They stole the identity of Martin Schulz, the former president of the European Parliament. This fake organization, 750 fake media outlets, 550 domains named, registered. This should ring a bell for us. Information is the key. If we want to survive, what we are doing tonight is for our children tomorrow. So again, that's Europe. What's happening in America? Just in December of 2023, the Washington Post put out a massive report on the disinformation lab going on within America, where Americans were targeted. That means if you spoke against, you were critical of what's happening in India, like the European Union, they discovered all that. This is in America, and they were targeting people who are critical of the Modi government. Now, why this is important? What are their prime targets here? They were targeting George Soros. They were targeting Congresswoman Jayapal. They were targeting everyone, pastors. They were targeting Muslims who dared to speak for the rights of Muslims in India. And even a person like me was targeted. You can find that in the report. Every aspect of our life was hit with misinformation. They put threats on people, disinformation, so people will feel embarrassed and sit home. Who are these people who run the European Union disinformation for so long? Who are these people who the Washington speaks? What do they believe? So, for example, the Modi government, they believe in the fascist ideology of the party, the ideology party. We heard of the Taliban, we have of other ideologies. But what's the ideologies of Modi's party? They say the Holocaust is a good lesson for us to learn by and profit by. Germany has shown how impossible it is for races and cultures having difference to go to root to be assimilated. This is a direct contrast, a direct divergence from the values of America, where we see each other blood of blood, flesh of flesh. But the people in India, like Modi government, they do not see it. And if you criticize them, they send out death squads here, like in Canada. They had this young man assassinated by sending criminal gangs, and the United States intelligence caught the whole operation, and they caught an agent of the Indian government who's standing trial right here in America. And this is so important to us that, and now I will quickly say, people like Sarah Adams, who sacrifice and put their lives in danger, they say we need to rise above party politics. We should not say it's my party or his party. When it comes to accountability, freedom, we are Americans first. If our freedoms are threatened, if our existence is threatened, then nothing matters. If we are flesh and flesh, blood and blood, whether we came here, we are very fortunate, or some of us are not so fortunate, but it's our duty to support the freedom of America. Americanism stresses a collective political identity which is based on freedom, liberty, human rights, rule of law. And if we have so much foreign interference and interventions in our country, and in the grassroots we don't talk about it, then we're going to be facing some real trouble sooner or later. That's why the government of the United States, they enacted the Transnational Repression Policy Act, S-831, which is to protect freedom. Your club need to be applauded. What a brave step you guys did. You did not say he's right, who's wrong. You were united. And you said what? We want peace in Middle East. I just heard your president say that. We need to applaud you for that. And why that is important, the Transnational Repression Act, whoever suggests this kind of freedom or who wants to talk about what they really think about what America is, you don't want someone sending foreign government agents to eliminate such people. So Transnational Repression Act is the very essence of America. That's where the blood and flesh, it really merges with the freedom, where people who don't see assimilation of cultures, who don't see people coming together as beneficial in today's world. We need to reject such ideologies. And I want to really thank you for your wonderful time. I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, I don't come here as a Republican. I don't come here as a Democrat. I love everyone. I come here as an American. I think we need to understand America's integrity is threatened. If we're not mindful of this foreign interventions and disinformation campaigns. Love you guys. Have a good night. God bless all of us. God bless humanity. God bless every creation he created. And may he bless all of us, including our country. Thank you.
Okay, we're about to wrap up here, but Stephanie just had a little word she had to say, and then we'll adjourn.
I am part of the, I'm part of the Democratic Party, but I'm very sad that we have a candidate that is for the people. And I can't speak about it. But as a private citizen, I'm going to, because this is a democracy. Francisco Rosas I'm just upset right now, even thinking of how everything's going. Francisco Rosas is running for Anaheim City Council in District 4. He's a Navy veteran, and his thing is he wants to serve the residents in the special interests. See, I'm so upset over everything. I want to serve the residents, not the special interests that currently control Anaheim City Council. We can't ask for more. There's more information for him. I implore you to consider voting for him in District 4. And I'm saying this as a private resident, voting Democrat. And I am appalled at how everything's going in this country.
And if you want to talk to him, he's right there.
Normal.
So can we conclude the meeting so he can talk?
Yeah.
The meeting is concluded, Francisco?
Yes, the meeting is adjourned. Cisco can come up. This is about the DPO.
Okay, bye-bye,
regulations.
bye-bye,
So
Zoom
thank you.
world. Thanks for joining us.